Point out some of the differences, though, because as a big proponent of tax reform, there actually are some important differences, which is the Donald Trump tax plan would lose trillions of dollars, where the members of the Republican Party are saying tax reform should be revenue neutral. And I think that's a really important objective.
With dynamic scoring.
Because to add up with spending proposals, taking entitlements off the table, which I think is a very unwise idea and really stands in the way of getting this done, and dealing with the debt, you can't have a big loss from your tax reform. In terms of growing the economy, there's a big difference now than when we saw growth before. Right now, our economy is projected to grow at about 2%, and Donald Trump talked about growth rates of twice or three times that much. But we have a big challenge, which is changing demographics. As the baby boomers all move into retirement, in order to get those higher growth rates, you'd have to have productivity levels we've actually never seen in this country. So I think one thing that's really important here is let's aspire to grow the economy. You do that through tax reform, through public investments, but you also do that for paying for your proposals and controlling the debt. But let's not wish for it and assume sort of magical numbers that are unlikely to materialize.
If you want to do those things, and the things that Grover's talking about, and I would agree with all of them, more or less. If you want to do those things, you have to prevent this administration from being devoured and consumed by scandal. Donald Trump has made it pretty clear his plan is to run the least transparent and probably the least ethical administration in a long, long time. If any of this is to happen, this administration must be Trump-proofed. The president is up to no good. He's made that very clear. He's indicating to the Japanese, if you've got business with me, this is the person to talk to. He's indicating to the Indians, if you have business with me, these are the people to talk to. If he does that, I guarantee 18 months when you convene the show, you will not be talking about taxes, you will not be talking about that, you will be talking about the latest Trump scandal. Act now to save the country, the political system, and the Republican Party from the things this president seems to have in mind.
Let me ask another question, Lenny, of you about other ways capital can be spent, which is, we've talked about budget and tax reform, but there are other things Trump has on the priorities list. Immigration is one of them. How hard do you think that will be, and do you think that will expend some capital in terms of political capital that then can't be used on these very hard other things, tax reform, Medicare, and so forth?
I think it's a very dangerous thing to start with. I mean, obviously it was a campaign priority, so it's important to the president-elect. We recognize that that's going to be a priority for this administration. But you think about all of the other important issues, and we've talked about some of them, certainly tax reform. What's going to happen with Obamacare? This is something that has been a signature issue for Republicans for the last 6 years since the law was passed and signed into law. What is going to be done in terms of the repeal? And more importantly, I think, is the question about what you're going to replace it with. You know, I'm a little alarmed that we seem to be thinking that we can kick the can down the road on the replacement of the Affordable Care Act. There are some very important policy goals that Republicans have been working to accomplish for some time. For example, parity in the tax treatment of health care between those who get their health care from their employers and those who buy it on their own. That is something that should be a focus of the discussion, and we need to be focusing on that first, I think, rather than some of these other issues, which frankly I don't think have as much potential to grow the economy, certainly not in the way that Mr. Trump has talked about them.
Grover?
Well, I think on health care, and Trump has spoken to this, allowing people from New Jersey to buy their insurance from companies in Iowa, allowing you to cross borders. Even the government said that would drop the cost about 15%. That's an important reform that makes all the other reforms easier. We need to get spending down as well as regulations. We've been talking about taxes, but the Reduce Act that Ken Calvert has put forward to reduce the number of civilian employees at the Pentagon by 15%. They've grown 15%. In the Bush-Obama years.
But they're going to grow more under Donald Trump, who's talking about a big plus-up in spending on defense.
First of all, he wants to talk about putting more troops on, but I'm talking about the civilian employees. Troops have gone down 4% during that period. The civilian population has gone up 15%. What Reduce Act does is simply takes it back down 15%, back to where it had been, compared to the number of troops you have. That saves $80 billion in 5 years. That's an important reform, and if we're going to do more on the military in some areas, we need to get rid of the wasteful spending that we don't need to do. And Calvert's got a very important bill.
Let me ask, add to whatever your answer is going to be in the last 40 seconds here. Donald Trump, $1 trillion infrastructure bill. How does that fit in the coming budget? Quite challenges that exist.
Right. So infrastructure is one of the few areas where both Democrats and Republicans tend to agree that we need to do more spending there. But if you look at what the Congressional Budget Office found, we know that infrastructure can be a very important component of an economic growth strategy. But they also found that if you borrow to do that, it will actually shrink the economy. The same way that Wharton found that if you borrow to do a big tax cut, it could shrink the economy. So I think the problem that we have, the big challenge is, one, Grover's focusing on the spending, that's really the smaller parts of the budget. I think we need to look at the big parts of the budget. Back to entitlements, that's 50% of the budget, 75% of the growth. And two, if you want to grow the economy, you can't borrow your way to growth. We have to get control of the national debt. So they're going to have to make choices. That's what budgets are. It's about choices. We are moving from campaigning to governing, and now we have to look at the real choices.
All right, we're going to have to stop it there. We'll look forward to come back and talk about the choices later. Thanks to all of you.